to our latest episode of People Matter. Today I'll be talking about quiet quitting. Now, this is another new term that has been added to the post-COVID employment law dictionary alongside hybrid working and the Great Resignation. We now have the latest buzzword, that is quiet quitting. Now, it's received considerable media attention recently. Some commentators have regarded it as the extension of the recent trend towards maintaining a better work-life balance. Other commentators have regarded it much more negatively. Now, it isn't a new concept in the employment law world. Although it sounds like it's referring to someone who is quitting and resigning from their job, actually, it sounds like a rebrand of the well-known work to rule principle. Now, this essentially boils down to the idea that an employee is doing no more than is necessary of their contractual job role. Strictly speaking, these employees are fulfilling their contractual working hours and job duties. If the goal is, as some commentators say, to maintain a better work-life balance, then the concept of not going above and beyond what is required in a contractual relationship might be an employee's way of setting boundaries in order to improve their work-life balance. Although from our experience, there's often more to this than meets the eye and a lot more going on behind the scenes. Now, if we're looking at this from an employer's perspective, there's quite a few issues to consider, and I would say it's a mix of moral and legal arguments. Now, we have to look closely at the situation and not simply make assumptions. So one issue to think about is whether staff are appropriately paid. Are they genuinely paid enough to go over and above what is required of their contractual role? What is the expectation and what is the remuneration package at play here? It's common for an employer to pay generously for a senior member of staff because the expectation is that they're on call beyond the usual 9 to 5 working day. Another issue to think about is whether these employees are doing anything wrong or improper by sticking to their core working hours, for instance. Are they still meeting their targets? Are they performing well against their objectives? Is the output as it's expected to be? Or, on the other hand, are deadlines being missed? Is performance lagging behind? Is there an impression that an employee doesn't seem to care, and are there complaints about client service? This is, of course, an entirely different matter compared with someone who might be very efficient, who is able to meet or even exceed their targets, and is properly organising their working day and compartmentalising their day generally. There's also the implied duty of fidelity to think about, which is a duty that employees owe to their employer. And this is in the context of whether the behaviour is done with the intention to cause disruption. Now, if it is, and deadlines are being missed, and there is some adverse effect to the workplace or business, client service levels are dropping, for instance, then that's a different matter, and it may well be that action needs to be taken, and it could be a potential disciplinary route. On the other hand, if you have an employee, as I said, who is exceeding targets or doing well in terms of their objectives, then that's slightly different. I also think that a key message from all of this is not to make assumptions, as I said earlier. With the new hybrid world we're working in, it's becoming a lot more common for people to log off, say at 5 p.m, and then log back on in the evening, or keep an eye on their emails throughout the working day. As we all know, the hybrid working day has meant that the working day itself has extended. The difficulty with assumptions and a risk that follows from making assumptions is that there may be more going on behind the scenes. An employee may have protected characteristics, and therefore there may be risks of possible discrimination type claims in that context. So, for example, if you have an employee who has caring responsibilities or who is a parent, the perception from the outside might be that they're leaving at 5 p.m. on the dot every day, so therefore they must be quietly quitting. However, in reality, they are very efficient, they're meeting their job role objectives, and they're actually performing quite well, because once they're home, they may well, in return for the flexibility that their employer has offered them, log on to emails and carry out work tasks in the evening. And this is important to keep in mind. Another example might be an employee who is suffering with mental health issues and who might have a long-term medical condition. Again, they may have a protected characteristic, they may be regarded as having a disability. All of these factors are really important in the context of quiet quitting, because I think the crux of the issue is looking at the bigger picture, looking at output, looking at whether an employee's intentions are to cause disruption, or actually are they getting on with their role, performing well, meeting targets, perhaps they're a high achiever. All of this is important to look at collectively. Having honest conversations and building a culture of openness is likely to be critical in these circumstances. Hopefully, this whistle stop tour has helped demystify the concept that is quiet quitting and given our employer clients some top tips to deal with such situations in reality.